I think one of the great gifts of the book of Proverbs is what Proverbs teaches us about contentment. Everyone likes to read materials, hear materials about how to excel and do more and be more and have more. But Proverbs takes a different posture and says, maybe some of the time we need to be happy with what it is that we've already got. I've seen some research in the past that talks about this strange phenomenon where children who've grown up in poverty situations and children who've grown up in great affluence may often end up with a lot of the same kinds of problems with crime and drug abuse and a lot of poor life decisions. And it's because they have a similar home life in some surprising ways. Sometimes in a poverty situation, you may have parents that are just entirely absent because they're busy working. Either they don't live together or they may be working some kind of minimum wage job or worse, and it's just simply hard to survive. Therefore, they're not present among their kids' growing up years. At the other end of that scale, sometimes people are so successful and so affluent that they don't really have to be present. And it's because they've been saying yes to their career and yes to these opportunities, they've forgotten to also say yes to the value of raising their children and teaching them to be wise and productive people. Proverbs says there is actual danger with too much wealth or too much poverty. Either of these could lead us either to sin because we're hungry or to sin because we think that we can live life without God because we're just good enough on our own. But Proverbs invites us to think about the value of contentment. So I'll ask you this question. If you could try to put yourself in a mindset of where you were 10 years ago, think about that for a minute. 10 years ago, what were you doing? What phase of life were you in? What was most important to you? Who were the people that mattered to you most? But if 10 years ago, you had tried to project into the future, how much money would it take for me to be happy in 10 years? How much stuff would be enough stuff? How nice of a vehicle would be a nice enough vehicle? I'm curious, 10 years after that, where you sit right now with the things that you have right now, have you met or even exceeded some of those things that you were wanting? I would imagine many of you have. But is it also your experience that once you achieved those things you believed would be enough, do you still feel that way about them? Once you got that salary, that house, that vehicle, whatever it was that you were wishing for, once you got those things, did you immediately say, well, now my goals have been met and I can focus on more important things? Our tendency is always to be looking at where we are and then imagining more stuff that we want to have. Proverbs invites us to learn to be happier with what it is that we've already been given. Jesus speaks about the importance of stewardship, that we could be trustworthy even with a few things so that God would entrust us with many things. Contentment is a very important virtue, but also a difficult virtue to practice. Hope you enjoy reflecting on it this week, and maybe you'll even challenge yourself a little bit.